China doesn't need to beat America in AI. China already owns the floor America is standing on. That's the sentence nobody in Washington wants to say out loud. Every chip, every GPU, every data center running the latest model, all of it starts with a rock pulled out of the ground in Inner Mongolia and refined in a facility the United States doesn't have, can't build fast enough, and honestly doesn't fully know how to replicate at scale. So before you get comfortable thinking this is a story about who writes the smartest algorithm, understand this. The AI race isn't being fought in a lab. It's being fought in a mine, a furnace, and a refinery. And the West lost that fight before it even knew it started. Let's talk rare earths because this is the part of the story everyone skips to talk about chatbots instead. Neodymium, dysprosium, terbium. These aren't exotic curiosities. They're the raw material behind every high-performance magnet used in servers, robotics, and the cooling systems that keep AI data centers from melting themselves into slag. China controls roughly 70% of global rare earth mining. But here's the number that should actually scare you. China controls close to 90% of the processing. You can dig rare earth ore up in California, in Australia, in Africa. Doesn't matter. Almost none of it gets refined into usable material outside Chinese-controlled facilities. That's not a supply chain gap. That's a chokehold. And it's a chokehold China spent 30 years building on purpose, while American policymakers were busy congratulating themselves on services economies and knowledge work. And it's not just the 17 elements everyone name drops. Gallium and germanium, the materials that go into radar systems, fiber optics, and high-efficiency chips, are almost entirely processed in China as well. And Beijing has already shown its hand by restricting exports of both the moment trade tensions escalated. This is the part American commentators conveniently leave out. Rare earth dominance isn't a single lever China can pull once. It's dozens of smaller levers, spread across dozens of materials, each one boring enough that nobody outside the industry has ever heard of it, and each one capable of quietly strangling a specific piece of the AI hardware pipeline. You don't need a headline-grabbing embargo when you can just slow-walk permits on a mineral nobody in Congress can even pronounce. Now layer semiconductors on top of that, because this is where it gets uncomfortable for anyone who thinks export controls are winning this thing. Yes, the US banned advanced lithography exports. Yes, NVIDIA's top-tier chips are restricted. And what happened? China didn't collapse. It accelerated its own domestic chip program, poured state money into SMIC, and started flooding its own AI labs with good enough silicon paired with software efficiency tricks that get shockingly close to frontier performance for a fraction of the compute. Meanwhile, the company the entire American AI industry depends on for actual advanced chip fabrication, TSMC, sits 90 miles off the coast of a country China has never stopped saying it intends to reunify with. Sit with that for a second. America's entire AI supply chain runs through a single island that its biggest rival considers unfinished business. That's not resilience. That's a single point of failure with a flag on it. And here's the part that should really get people arguing in the comments. American export restrictions might be accelerating the very outcome they were designed to prevent. Every time Washington tightens the screws on chip exports, Beijing treats it as confirmation that self-sufficiency isn't optional. It's survival. That's why China is now the largest buyer of semiconductor manufacturing equipment on Earth. Right now, today, while American firms wait years for permits to open a single fab in Arizona. You can't sanction a country into losing a race it's decided to win at any cost. You can only sanction it into trying harder. There's also a piece of this nobody wants to admit on camera. Chip fabrication isn't just about lithography machines. It's about ultra-pure water, specialty chemicals, and photoresist. And a huge share of that chemical supply chain also runs through East Asia, with China sitting close enough to the process to apply pressure whenever it wants. Building a fab in the desert outside Phoenix doesn't fix that. You can pour billions into a facility, put Made in America on the building, and still be quietly dependent on inputs that get shipped in from the exact region you're trying to build independence from. That's the dirty secret behind every reshoring press release. The building is American, but half of what keeps that building running is not. Then there's energy, and this is the one almost nobody in the AI conversation wants to touch because it doesn't fit the narrative of American innovation always wins. Training and running frontier AI models takes staggering amounts of electricity. China added more grid capacity last year alone than the entire installed base of most industrialized nations. Coal, nuclear, hydro, solar. China is building all of it, everywhere, simultaneously, without the permitting battles, environmental review lawsuits, or NIMBY town halls that turn an American data center project into a 5-year legal saga. You can have the best model architecture in the world. If you can't power it, it doesn't matter. And right now, one side of this race is building power plants at a pace the other side hasn't matched since World War II industrial mobilization, while the other side argues about interconnection queues. Here's the part that will actually make people mad. This isn't a talent problem, and it was never a talent problem. American labs still produce excellent researchers. But raw talent doesn't matter if the physical infrastructure to turn research into deployed systems at scale belongs to somebody else. You can have the smartest engineers on the planet designing the smartest chip architecture on paper. If the rare earths, the fabrication capacity, and the energy grid to build and run it sits somewhere else, you're not competing. You're licensing your future to whoever holds the physical choke points. And that's the sentence that should be the headline of this entire conversation, but almost never is. America is trying to win an industrial war using a services economy playbook against a country that spent 3 decades deliberately building the exact industrial base this war requires. And here's the twist that really should sting. Some of the researchers building America's most advanced models were trained in the exact same pipeline America is now trying to compete against. A huge share of top AI talent at American labs got their undergraduate education in Chinese universities before coming to the US for graduate school. That's not a coincidence. That's a strategy. China doesn't need to keep every top mind at home to benefit from this race, because the knowledge circulates back regardless, through conferences, through published papers, through returning talent lured back with better funding and fewer restrictions than they'd get staying in the US long term. America built an immigration system that imports the talent. China built an industrial system that owns the materials that talent needs to actually build anything. Guess which one is easier to replace? None of this means China wins automatically, and none of this means American innovation stops mattering. But it means the framing everyone uses, who has the better model, is the wrong question entirely. The right question is who controls the inputs nobody can substitute overnight. The mines, the refineries, the fabs, the grid. And on almost every one of those right now, in 2026, the answer is not the United States. So here's what I want you to actually sit with after this video. Is this fixable? Can reshoring, new rare earth processing plants in Texas, new fabs in Arizona, actually close a 30-year gap in 5 or 10 years? Or is that timeline of fantasy politicians tell voters because the truth is too uncomfortable to say in an election year? Drop your answer in the comments, because I guarantee half of you think this is overblown and half of you think it's already too late. And I want to see that argument happen right here.